My wife was a high school teacher, and everyone around her knew her as someone with great taste in clothes. She was always able to find an outfit that emphasized her slim figure while looking elegant and stylish. Her model figure and her ability to wear clothes to look flawless made her the most beautiful woman in the school. Colleagues often admired her looks, and female students dreamed of being like her. Sometimes my wife allowed herself to wear slightly short skirts, which would make any man jealous. But since she worked in a school, I never paid much attention to it. I was sure of her loyalty and that she would never trade me for someone from high school. It was obvious to me that she was a professional and knew how to keep her distance in dealing with students. Our relationship seemed strong and secure to me. We often talked about her work, and I could see the passion and dedication she had for her work. Her stories about the school, her pupils, and her colleagues were always enthusiastic. I was proud of her successes and the way she dealt with challenges. Everything was going well, life was going on, and nothing was going to go wrong. I had been working as an electrician for many years, and our firm serviced many different facilities, from residential homes to industrial plants. One day, in the middle of a normal workday, our firm received a new order to replace light fixtures at a local school. When I heard the name of the school, my heart leapt for joy. It was the same school where my wife worked. Deciding to give her a pleasant surprise, I deliberately did not tell her about our order. I wanted to see her reaction when she unexpectedly met me in her usual work environment. Our crew traveled to the site near the end of the school day. We arrived at the school when classes were almost over and the students were going home. The school administration had decided to let the students go early so that our work would not inconvenience or endanger them. As soon as we stepped inside, I felt a slight trepidation in anticipation of seeing my wife. The school seemed unusually quiet, its hallways and classrooms empty, leaving behind only echoes of the day's noise. We began replacing the lights in the corridors, moving methodically from one end of the building to the other. The work was progressing, but the thought of finding my wife never left my mind. I imagined how happy she would be to see me here, and how pleased she would be to realize that I had come to her school. At some point I decided to take a break and went in search of her. As I walked from one empty classroom to another, I noted to myself how different the classrooms were in style and atmosphere. In each classroom there were traces of recent student presence. Open notebooks, forgotten textbooks, chalk on the blackboard. But there was not a single person anywhere. I knew that classes were over, but I still hoped I'd find her somewhere else, maybe in the teacher's lounge, or in one of the classrooms where she was preparing for tomorrow's lessons. With each step through the empty corridors of the school, my excitement grew. I looked forward to seeing her minding her own business so I could surprise her. I opened another empty classroom, expecting to see my wife getting ready for class or minding her own business. Instead, however, I was confronted with a sight I could never have imagined. In the classroom, with the lights dimmed, she was with another man. They were standing so close together that it took my breath away. For a moment, time stood still. My heart pounded so hard that it felt like its pounding could be heard throughout the school. We were all in shock. I from what I saw, she from being caught, and the man from the sudden appearance of a stranger. At that moment, I didn't know how to react properly. Anger, resentment, and hurt mixed in my mind, making me feel broken. My wife didn't know what to say or do either. Her face reflected panic, and she tried to explain something, but I didn't want to hear anything anymore. Rather than make a scene and work things out right there in the empty classroom, I decided to back off. Gathering the rest of my dignity, I calmly turned around and walked out of the room to get back to my work. The rest of the day passed like a blur. I did my chores, replacing the lights and trying not to think about what had happened. But the thoughts of my wife and her betrayal kept coming back to haunt me. My coworkers noticed that something was wrong with me, but I shrugged it off and said everything was fine. When I got home, my wife and I couldn't avoid talking. The atmosphere in the house was tense, and as soon as the door closed behind me, the argument flared up with renewed vigor. She tried to justify herself, explaining that it was a momentary infatuation, that she did not want to offend me. But I couldn't listen to her words anymore. My pain and resentment was too strong. I realized that our relationship would never be the same. We shouted at each other, blaming and reproaching. Tears, yelling, broken dishes. It was like some kind of nightmare. Finally, I realized that I could no longer live with a man who had betrayed me so much. The decision to divorce was not easy, but I knew it was the only way out. To add even more drama to it, I went to school and caused a scandal by telling everyone about her cheating. As a result of this scandal, she was fired from her job and lost not only her husband but also her position at the school. Life went on despite the pain and disappointment I experienced. It had been a few months since I divorced my wife. I plunged into work, trying to forget about the past and focus on the future. Gradually, my wounds began to heal. I started spending more time with friends, started playing sports, and took up new hobbies to take my mind off my sad thoughts. One day, at a party at a mutual friend's house, I met a wonderful woman named Elena. She was not only beautiful, but also smart, funny, and kind. We immediately found a common language and talked for a long time about life, hobbies, and dreams. With each new meeting, I was more and more convinced that she was the one with whom I wanted to build my future. Our relationship developed rapidly, but at the same time very naturally. Elena understood me half-heartedly, supported me in difficult moments, and rejoiced at my successes. We spent a lot of time together, went to the movies, walked in parks, arranged romantic dinners. Her care and love helped me to finally forget about the past and open my heart to new feelings. A year into our relationship, I proposed to her. It was an unforgettable moment. I arranged a candlelight dinner on the riverbank, in the place where we first confessed our love to each other. Elena said yes, and I felt I was the happiest person in the world. Our wedding was fabulous. We invited only the closest and dearest people. The ceremony was held in a small cozy restaurant, decorated with fresh flowers and lights. Elena was beautiful in her wedding dress. Her eyes shone with happiness, and I could not take my eyes off her. Our vows were sincere and touching. We both couldn't hold back tears of joy. After the wedding, we started building our home together. We were happily engaged in arranging our cozy nest, choosing furniture, decor, and everything that would make our home warm and cozy. Every day spent with Elena brought me joy and satisfaction. We planned our future, dreamed of children, and a long, happy life together. A year after the wedding, we had a little girl. This day became the happiest in my life. Elena coped with the role of a mom on all 100%. She was attentive, loving, and caring. We both adored our baby girl and tried to surround her with love and care. I felt that I had finally found my happiness and my place in life. I now live my life enjoying every moment. My new family has become a source of inspiration and strength for me. Every morning, waking up next to Elena and seeing our daughter, I realize that I have found my true happiness. We overcome all difficulties and joys together, support each other, and build our future. Now I know that true love and happiness are possible, and they are worth all the trials we had to go through. I want to apologize for any mistakes in the text or dubbing. I am just learning, and the language of this channel is not my mother tongue. The dubbing is done with the help of artificial intelligence. Please point out errors so I can fix them and improve the quality of the content. Also, I will be glad if you share your thoughts on the topic. Your support in the comments is very motivating for me to keep looking for new, interesting stories. Thank you for your understanding and participation. Subscribe to the channel and put a bell to not miss new stories. Story 2. I lived in a small, cozy town where everyone knew each other and all the news spread with amazing speed. One day, a girl I often saw on the streets of our town caught my eye. She was incredibly beautiful, with a sweet smile and sparkling eyes that attracted attention. My heart started beating faster every time I saw her, and I decided that I wanted to get to know her better. The first step was to start corresponding with her. I found her on social media, and after gathering all my courage, I wrote her first message. To my surprise, she replied and our communication started. Things went great at first. She readily responded to my messages, asked questions about my life, and shared her stories. I felt a connection forming between us. However, at the time, I was unemployed and just starting out in a small business that was not generating any income at the time. My financial status was far from ideal, and it bothered me a little. A few times I'd gotten up the courage to ask her out, but every time she'd find a reason to say no. Sometimes it was excuses like, I'm too busy, or I already have plans. It was a little frustrating, but I didn't give up, hoping that she would still say yes. Then one day, out of the blue, she did. I was over the moon. We agreed to meet in the park in the evening. When I arrived at the meeting place, I saw her standing by the fountain. She looked amazing. Her dress was fluttering in the wind, and on her face she had that sweet smile that had captivated me from the beginning. We walked along the streets of our small town, talking about everything in the world. It was a hot summer evening, so we decided to go to a small cafe and had a cold beer. It wasn't a perfect date in the traditional sense, but it was special to me. We laughed, shared dreams and plans for the future. I hoped that this was just the beginning of our encounters, and that maybe she felt something more for me. I was over the moon after our first date. I hoped that this was just the beginning of our encounters and believed that something more could develop between us. Full of enthusiasm and confidence, I asked her out again. This time I carefully thought out all the details. I chose a cozy cafe, planned to walk through the beautiful places of our town, and even prepared a small gift, a symbolic but sincere gesture of attention. However, she did not agree. She politely refused, referring to the busyness and personal matters. I did not despair and decided to try again. I invited her again, hoping that she would still find time to meet, but this time I was refused. The situation repeated itself. Every time I offered to meet, she found a reason not to go. I still didn't give up hope and tried again and again. I believed that persistence and sincerity would help me win her favor. But as time went on, her responses became less and less frequent and then stopped altogether. I didn't understand what was going on, and anxiety grew in my heart. One day I received a text from her that came as a shock to me. She wrote that she didn't want to talk to guys anymore and decided to devote all her time and attention only to herself. These words hit me harder than I could have expected. I reread the message several times, not believing my eyes. It seemed as if the whole world had collapsed in an instant. I tried to figure out what could have gone wrong. Every day I replayed our correspondence and rare encounters in my head, trying to find clues as to what I had done wrong. Maybe I was too pushy, or maybe she just wasn't ready for a relationship. But despite my best efforts to understand what had happened, I was not finding answers. Determined to express my feelings and frustration, I texted her. I chose my words carefully so as not to sound too hurt or aggressive. I told her how sorry I was that things had turned out the way they had, and that maybe she could have spoken up sooner before I had feelings for her. I hoped she would respond to me sincerely and explain her behavior. There was a hope burning inside me that things could still be changed and that our relationship could be saved. When I received her response, my heart ached. She replied short and dry. "I'm sorry, don't be sad." Those words seemed so cold and indifferent. They sounded like a final judgment on our relationship. I reread her message over and over again, hoping to find some shadow of regret or warmth in it. But it was all in vain. She didn't seem to care at all, and she had made up her mind long ago. It was only a few days after her message, and I began to notice a change in her behavior. She started posting pictures and stories on social media with her new boyfriend. At first, I didn't want to believe my eyes. My heart clenched with jealousy and pain. I couldn't understand how she found a replacement so quickly. Everything inside me was boiling with indignation and resentment. This was a man I didn't know, but who had clearly been in her life for some time. One day, walking through our small town, I saw them together. They were walking down the street holding hands, laughing and looking happy. That scene tore my heart to pieces. My hands clenched into fists, and I felt tears running down my cheeks. At first, I didn't want to believe my eyes, but then it became clear to me that she had started dating him even before she decided to stop communicating with me. My friends tried to support me, but their words couldn't drown out the pain I felt. Every time I saw her with a new guy or heard about them from others, my heart filled with bitterness. I tried to distract myself with work and errands, but thoughts of her kept coming back. I realized now that her words about wanting to devote time to herself were just a cover. In fact, she was just looking for someone else who could offer her more than I could at that moment. I later found out that she had suspended me because I wasn't working. This news was a kick in the butt for me. I had always believed that for true love, money didn't matter, that the most important thing was feelings and mutual understanding. Turns out I was wrong. It became clear to me that she was attracted not so much to my personality as to my material well-being. This thought sat in my head and did not give rest. 6 months passed, and my business began to make a profit. I worked hard, tirelessly, trying to prove, first of all, to myself that I am able to succeed. It wasn't easy, but I didn't give up. I got up every morning thinking that I had to do everything I could to succeed. The business grew, and my income grew with it. After another 6 months, I was able to buy a car. This moment was symbolic for me. The car became the embodiment of all my efforts and hard work. The issue of money no longer bothered me. Now I could afford a lot of things that I had only dreamed of before. My life changed. I became more confident. And that girl is still dating that guy. I used to see them together a lot in our town. At first, they seemed like the perfect couple, but as time went on, I started to notice that things weren't going so smoothly in their relationship. People whispered that they fought a lot, and that her boyfriend wasn't faithful to her. They said that he was dropping by other girls, and she knew all this, but didn't do anything about it. It was weird to me. How could she put up with all this? But the answer was obvious. She was forgiving him because of the money. She was attracted to his finances, to his lifestyle, which she couldn't afford on her own. Her love was mercantile, and that was sad. Every time I saw them together, I couldn't help but think that money really can change a lot of things in life. It can buy comfort, security, but it can't buy real feelings and sincere affection. Now I knew this for sure, and my experience was an important lesson for me for the future. I want to apologize right away for any possible mistakes in the text or dubbing. I am just learning, and the language of this channel is not my mother tongue. The dubbing is done with the help of artificial intelligence. Please point out errors so I can fix them and improve the quality of the content. Also, I will be glad if you share your thoughts on the topic. Your support in the comments is very motivating for me to keep looking for new, interesting stories. Thank you for your understanding and participation. Subscribe to the channel and put a bell to not miss new stories.